Well, I thought it is time again for a road trip, and the husband and I, we made our way to Kingston, and we just settled down on our bed and breakfast behind me. It is gorgeous here. Kingston sits at a place where water has decided to meet more than once. Lake Ontario, the St. Lawrence River and the Rideau Canal all converge at a single point. Old fortress walls and limestone buildings are reminders that the city was once far more important than it appears at first glance. Today, life is quieter, but beneath the surface, you can still sense it. Kingston has seen enough stories to fill several books. And perhaps a few it would rather keep to itself. But let's go back a few days to the moment Kingston was born. One fine day, the French explorer Jacques Cartier arrived in Canada, took a look at the St. Lawrence River and promptly declared, "Very nice, this is all France now." So the French moved in, founded settlements along the river, and initially maintained a fairly functional coexistence with the indigenous people while the fur trade boomed. In the 17th century, the governor of New France had a practical idea. A fur trading post combined with a military fort at the waterways. Wow, that would be useful. After all, everything ran on rivers and lakes at the time. And so Kingston came into being strategically positioned at the junction of the St. Lawrence River, the Cataraqui River, the Rideau Canal, and Lake Ontario. In 1758, the British showed up, found the location equally convincing, and decided, we'll take this over. Thanks to its many waterways, Kingston became the most important naval base on Lake Ontario. Later, the United States briefly toyed with the idea that Canada should belong to the USA, and if not voluntary, then perhaps by other means. That didn't work out. Instead, Kingston became the center of a maritime arms race. The British and the Americans engaged in an ambitious shipbuilding competition on Lake Ontario. In June 1812, the US attacked, and on November 10th, there was an assault on Kingston Harbor. Short, intense, and unsuccessful. It remained the only direct attack on the city because by then Kingston was well prepared. Artillery, defensive towers, guard posts, and warships, the full program. Who knows? Without Kingston, Canada might actually have become the 51st state. But even back then, it was already clear that no thank you was meant quite seriously. Even today, Kingston remains militarily significant. It is home to the Royal Military College of Canada, one of the most important officer training institutions of the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as a large Canadian Army base with numerous units and training facilities. As I mentioned earlier, Kingston is surrounded by a lot of water. What I haven't mentioned yet, there are also countless islands here. That's why this region is modestly called the 1,000 Islands. So we set off on the Island Queen and actually counted them. And it turns out the 1,000 Islands claim is a bit of an understatement. There are, in fact, exactly 1,846 of them. But calling it the region of almost 2,000 islands would sound completely ridiculous. This world-famous island group stretches for about 80 kilometers along the St. Lawrence River between Kingston and Brockville. The islands were formed at the end of the last ice age. In reality, they are the tops of ancient mountains. Only the meltwater decided to simply flood everything else. There's everything here. Huge islands like Wolf Island, medium-sized ones, tiny ones, and some that look more like a rock with ambition. They all have to be surrounded by water, and at least one tree has to grow on the island to be counted as such. Before the invention of the car, wealthy Canadians liked to buy an island, build a cottage on it, and spend their summers there. Very exclusive, very idyllic. Around 1920, the automobile boom arrived, and many people realized you could simply drive there for a day. No island purchase required. Today, however, things have swung back a bit. Owning an island again requires a lot of money, or the good fortune of having inherited one from your great-great-great-great-grandfather. The Great Lakes Museum was, of course, also on my list, if only because of this beauty here, quietly dreaming away in all her majesty. Behind me is the last steamship in the world, the SS Keewatin. But before we step on board, it's worth taking a short look back at her time. The SS Keewatin is the last Edwardian steamship in the world. Something like the Titanic's older cousin, not in size, but in age. She was built in 1907. The Titanic followed 5 years later. While one famously went down, the other chose a far more stable career path. First a passenger ship, then a freighter, and since 1968 a very relaxed museum ship. The museum itself is surprisingly diverse. Every room tells its own small maritime story. One section is dedicated to aquaculture, the very modern question of how fish, mussels, and even kelp are farmed in Canada. Interactive stations let you try your hand as a fish farmer or learn about indigenous practices. Next comes the Naval Reserve exhibition. Here you can test whether you are theoretically be fit for naval service. Purely hypothetically. No one is being enlisted on the spot. The exhibition reminds visitors that since 1923 a citizen navy has existed, training more than 77,000 people during the Second World War, and continuing to serve as an active reserve today. The lively world around the marina is captured in 25 original drawings by Grant MacDonald. And then there's the pump room. Oh. In the past, entire dry docks were drained here and massive gates were moved. Today, things are surely easier. The hardest work is probably reading the information panels and pressing a button. In the end, one impression remains. Countless adventures unfolded on these waters, some documented, many long lost in the fog of time. And right in the middle of all lies the SS Kevartin, quiet and elegant, as if thinking, "Ugh, people, I've seen enough. Leave me in peace." For 11 years now, the gallery in Martello Alley has been calling this little lane home. It showcases and sells original artwork by more than 40 local Canadian artists. Paintings, prints, and handmade gifts. Definitely not your average souvenir shop. This is where you find creativity and pieces with real soul. In 1840, Kingston's mayor had a brilliant idea. The city needed a new city hall. After all, Kingston was about to become the capital of Canada, and a capital obviously deserved a grand government building. In 1841, Kingston was officially declared the capital, and in June 1843, the cornerstone for the new City Hall was laid. The construction cost of around £20,000? No problem. The government picked up the bill. After all, this was the nation's capital. But then everything changed. Before the building was even finished, the government decided that Kingston was simply too close to the American border in the event of an attack. So the city lost its status as the seat of government, and Montreal became the new capital instead. Well, that was unfortunate. The City Hall was completed in 1844, but unfortunately it had far more rooms than anyone suddenly needed. And as soon as the first maintenance bills arrived, an uncomfortable question came up. Who was going to pay for the upkeep of such a magnificent building? So Kingston rolled up its sleeves and got creative. The market moved in, followed by shops, a theater, the post office, and even a bank. Before long, the impressive building was once again filled with life. Today, the neoclassical City Hall is a National Historic Site of Canada. And here's one little detail that's easy to miss. The magnificent ceiling light fixture contains exactly 373 light bulbs and was specially designed for the building's 1973 renovation. 373 light bulbs. Phew, hopefully they stocked up on a few spares back then, because finding exact replacements today probably wouldn't be easy. And one last fun fact. Have you ever heard of the rock band The Tragically Hip? They are from right here in Kingston. In Canada, just about everyone knows them, but they are probably less well known where you are. Sadly, the band's lead singer passed away in 2017, and that was the end of the Hip. A real shame. I always liked their music. Give them a listen. I've put a link in the description below.